Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order, and I guess the first change to our agenda is that I am going to be taking over for Erin tonight. She'll be with us in a little while. So let's go through with introductions. Holly, would it be easier for you or for me to go through and name call?
I'll do it. Why don't you start, Amanda?
I'm Amanda Sassy, and I'm the vice chair of Imagine Girdwood.
Go ahead, Brianna. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Mike Etchington. I'm Secretary of Imagine Girdwood and co-chair of GBOS.
Tim, is that Tim?
Yeah, how about now? Yeah, Tim Cabana.
Okay, we'll go to Brendan next.
Brendan Remedy Cobian.
Emma.
Hi, Girdwood resident landowner.
Hello. Okay, we'll go to Jean next.
Hi, just John today, Girdwood resident.
Okay. Hi, John. We'll go to Jen next.
Jennifer Wingard, also resident.
Joe?
Joe Bell, Girdwood resident and high real estate interests. Does that work?
Works. John?
I don't know if there's only one John. I'm John Weddleton. Normally there's a group of us, but I anchored assembly and I can be here about half an hour and then a community council meeting, but looking forward to listening in.
Hi, John. Rayanne?
She said she was unable to chat.
Because I'm leaving work right now and I can't really chat, but I am a Girdwood resident, but I'm here to listen.
Thank you. Okay, Shelley.
Shelley Relton Heritage Land Bank.
Okay, back to you, Amanda.
Okay, welcome everybody. And our first agenda item is to approve this agenda. We noted that a couple of places Erin's name is mentioned. We'll just strike that and make that Amanda. But otherwise, any discussion?
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you, Mike. Anyone second?
I second it, John Hanson.
Great. Can we do the whole is anyone opposed as opposed to everyone votes? Does that work, Mike or Holly?
You just call for a voice vote.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna go to our minutes for approval from February 24th.
I move to approve the minutes from February the 24th.
I'd second the move to approve.
Great, thank you, John, I think. And all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
I'm not opposed, but since there was no discussion, I just want to ask for a clerical revision to correct my name spelling. Thank you.
Yes.
What did I spell wrong, Shelley?
My mama named me Shelley with an E.
Oh, sorry.
You are.
Very sorry. I only put one E in. I should have two.
No. Thank you.
So revised. Thank you, Shelley. Okay, so moving on to announcements. So I guess the chair's report. A lot of what there is to report is on the agenda, actually, so I won't get into that. But we're moving forward. We've got a really ambitious timeline that we appreciate everyone's involvement to help move this forward. Anything to add, Mike?
No, I think we're going to cover it later.
Yeah, I think we're really, yeah, that's all the things. And so I guess, Mike, you're our interim treasurer. That being said, if anyone has any interest in helping out the Girdwood, Imagine Girdwood, we would greatly appreciate somebody who's interested in filling Diana's shoes as the treasurer. Mike is very kind to step in, but I know he's already busy with a lot of other things. So take it away, Mike.
Yeah, I actually do not have an update on our balance. I do know that we paid the latest invoice, so it's less than the previous one, but I will have numbers together and put it in the minutes. We have some fundraising things, but I'll talk about them next.
Also on the agenda, so. All right. So I guess old business, an update on fundraising. Mike?
Yeah. So we have two things which are two sources of funding which we're likely to see in the near future. We have a request into the Assembly for a $25,000 grant. They gave us a grant in 2018, and we're requesting a second one. That's going to come from the through the Committee for Housing and Homelessness, given that housing is a big focus of ours. I don't have a date yet for when that's likely to appear on the agenda at Assembly, but when it is, it would be beneficial if we had at least one or two people speaking in favor or available to speak in favor. And the other thing is HLB has extremely kindly offered to give us another matching grant. Again, the last one was in 2018. This will be $10,000 matched from other sources which do not come from the Muni. So we'll have to do fundraising from the community or other philanthropic sources. And we have a couple of options there. We have actually got a promise of a donation of $3,000 from Girdwood Inc. And we're looking for any other individuals or organizations within the community. So if anyone has any links, and again, anything donated through this path gets effectively doubled by HLB.
Yeah, or any fundraising ideas.
Yes.
We're about ready to go out and do a spaghetti feed or something. Raise some money to finish this plan. We're so close, I feel like, with the first part at least. I know there's a lot of process with the Muni to finish it up, but we're really close to being able to do that part of it. Anything else, Mike, about fundraising?
I don't recall the timescale. There's one last piece of paperwork that still needs to go in from the 2018 grant to formally close that. And then I think the HLB grant can go through the public process. I don't think that's going to take more than a couple of weeks, but Shelley may or may not have more information on that. I don't know. I didn't prompt you with this question, Shelley, before. So if you have any information, that's great. If you don't, that's great.
No, I don't.
Okay, understood.
Okay, well, no other discussion about that. And we can always come back to it if people have ideas. So number 7, review and approve updated vision goals and policies. Holly, do you want to take that from here?
Yeah.
Or do you want, or even if you put it up, we can, yeah, discuss it. But
Yeah, I'll put it up. So what I've done is I've left the changes that you made last time in red in the track changes, so that depending on how you want to go through this, I'm not sure we need to go through the whole document, but I think you want to get to the point tonight where you approve this so that you can move forward into figuring out how to implement all these items, whether it's from a land use perspective or it's a programmatic perspective, but I think that's what you want to do next. So I think you want to approve it tonight if you can find consensus on all the things. So just in summary, you made one change here under economic development. Well, a couple of changes that had to do with childcare and healthcare. Through the public review process, we learned that the words duplex and triplex were not favorable by people who commented, so we addressed that change. Again, this is another senior-based. We added senior housing into the housing section. I've left these for my own notes so that I remember to go look at these examples that were brought up last time, but that will eventually go away. We clarified the trail town designation. We added a little bit of clarification on the transportation, the weak points in current infrastructure. So we strengthened it by saying that we weren't just going to identify things, that you were going to identify them and then deal with that. And those were the only changes you made last time. Okay, Brendan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering, is this available on the website? I think I looked for it but couldn't find it. Just easier to pull up and look while you're going along.
I can send it to you. I believe Mike has it too.
Yeah, I looked for it earlier today in reference to our Holton Hills RFP and couldn't locate it.
I don't think I have the latest version actually, Holly.
Do you guys have a process for getting this on your website?
There's a shared folder which should be available to anybody.
Okay.
I can put it there.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'll let you guys dive in. How do you want to go about doing this?
well, I guess let's start off with, is there any like right off the bat comments in general or specifically before we like just go through maybe each topic area, I guess?
I was writing notes, I may have missed this. Was that we did have a discussion about schools and other public facilities and childcare? Was that covered?
In economic development, yes.
Okay.
Well, no, childcare, but I don't know.
Yes,
about
childcare was. Thank you. That's right.
So you did not resolve schools.
Right, the high school debate didn't get finished, or maybe it did get finished and we decided not to, because it's not our decision, it's ASD's. And then we talked about Chuyach, or yeah, school district. I don't remember where that went, but
I think we were hoping that the school district would get consulted. so that we had some idea of what their current strategic plan is.
Do you remember, is that consulted for to be able to put it into the plan potentially, or just like maybe that's a policy we consult ASD or school districts about potential secondary education? Or
I think we wanted to know what their current strategic plan was so that we could figure out what to do with it here, whether we just reference the document or come up with our own idea. So I don't know.
So is that something that would fall into the vision policy goals, or is that something that would fall into sort of in the implementation section, what other groups have an interest? So obviously, you know, we can make recommendations about transportation in the airport, but ultimately it's run by the state, and the same with the school district, is ultimately run by ASD.
yep. And let's see, I think that people wanted, was it that people wanted to have a high school? That was the main thing, right? About ASD involvement.
Some do, some don't. I'd say there's far from a consensus.
Where could an implementation of consult ASD be put in under a policy, or should we make a policy that it could then be put in under?
Yeah, no, my point was that we talked about actually finding out what their current strategy is, not to talk about it in the plan that we're going to ask them later. But
well, we haven't done that. So
I mean, there's a general question about engagement with, you know, major stakeholders, which we might be covering when it comes to focus groups. I'm not sure. I'm looking to Holly for guidance on that. And this falls into that camp, probably, because I don't think we're setting any policies in this area, but we want to make sure we acknowledge, you know, if there isn't a driving goal. I don't think there's a drive from the community to have a high school here, or if there is, it's probably matched by a drive not to. So we either have to resolve that and have some statement one way or the other, or treat this as one of the other sort of engagement and you know, liaison with other major stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you can do is, you could set up, I mean, whether it's one of you decide who does it, you would set up a meeting with somebody at ASD to maybe talk about their future projections that they have, that they're working from for Girdwood. So that's one way you could do that. I think it would be outside of the focus groups. In this scenario, the focus groups are intended to be a combination of some experts and community members participating. And the reason why I'm saying it could be a one-on-one with ASD is because it feels to me like it might span 2 or 3 different topic areas that we're considering going down. Like, you know, if ASD has some trends that they're projecting, it could impact transportation, it could impact housing, economic development. So, I mean, I don't think it would be the best use of the committee's time or ASD's time to participate in one of those focus groups. I think you would get more out of a one-on-one conversation with them. So, and we could build that into the next phase.
So for the purposes of tonight's meeting, to try and get these approved, could we approve them with a caveat that we still need to do that work with ASD potentially?
Yeah, I'm not, so my gut tells me that I'm not sure you're going to learn anything from ASD that is going to impact. Like, I don't think ASD is going to come back and say, we have this projection for 10,000 new students in Girdwood. And of course, I'm being ridiculous. But you know, if you learn that, that would impact your housing and transportation needs and your needs for providing land for public facilities. But I don't think you're going to hear that. So
do you think that what we could hear is kind of their bar for putting a high school here, and maybe that's something that could be, I don't know, somehow added to the plan?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's more what we're looking for than as much projections.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, ASD is actually just about done with their strategic plan. So I think that they would be able to share some of that with us, some current plans. If somebody wants to include them here, I don't know.
So, I mean, you know, the way we could think about it, Mike, is, you know, the scope of work to this point has been a lot of public facing community engagement work, right? You know, when we work through the next scope of work, we can consider including those interviews, right? Whether it's ASD or DOT or the railroad or so that could be a way to approach that.
So this would be kind of in parallel to focus groups.
Yeah.
Right. Should we sort of push that topic to, as we're discussing focus groups, we'll talk about that as well, about that process, and then just move on with the vision, goals, policies document.
I agree. So
Brendan has one thing he wants to talk about.
Oh, hey, thanks. I guess maybe there's two things I'll ask quick. Mike, if you could send along to Holly so she could paste in the chat. Also the link to the website shared drive section on the chat. I couldn't find it, so that would be helpful.
Yeah, I just have a view of it.
Okay. And what was I going? What was the first thing? Oh yeah, the Trailtown thing. Oh, sorry.
I'll bring it back up. I'll bring it back up. Hold on.
I'll just wait until you got it.
Okay. Okay. You got it?
Yeah, thank you. If you could scroll down to the Trailtown thing.
There it is.
I can't remember exactly the sort of consensus. Oh, thanks. About for the chat thing. The consensus about the discussion last time, but I remember bringing up how there was kind of, at least in my mind, confusion about what exactly a trail town designation was. And I thought, and I remember from the conversation, the sense that we didn't need to necessarily have this in here. And so my, for it to even, be an eventuality, like it wouldn't be prohibiting trail town from happening if we didn't have it in here. And I'm a little uncomfortable keeping it as, for example, move toward trail town designation, which kind of sounds like that's something we're endorsing, as opposed to something that that's something that could happen, but we just not really knowing what the heck that actually means seems like something we maybe shouldn't be endorsing as a policy. That's my thoughts.
To me, the language in the first sentence, the Girdwood explores, shows it isn't a commitment. But I mean, I take your point, but I don't read it, I think, the way you're interpreting it.
And we could always take out like move toward, because that is a maybe more, saying that's what we want to do. And just, for example,
Consider.
or e.g. trail town designation, and we can, because it's Girdwood explores public-private partnerships. For example, trail town designation is something that we could consider, and we have considered.
Right. That sounds, I like that idea that Amanda had. Or just like she just said, e.g. trail town designation, if we don't want it to be a
I
sentence.
just put consider before it, but that's a wording issue.
Right.
Consider trail town designation. I think with the explorer at the beginning, it makes it clearer that this is not a commitment. This is a direction.
Awesome. Okay, so was that all, Brendan, for now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Let's see. Any other right off the bat stuff to go over or consider? We've really done so much good work. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you remind me what we did, the other thing that was the whole RV park area? Did we just remove that from the list, or did we do something else?
I think we removed it.
Yeah, we removed it. Explore and encourage
Okay, great.
non-conventional residential
Yeah,
alternatives. for
good.
users. Okay.
Thank you.
How about we, unless other things come up, and they probably will, we go through and just start trying to approve each section. Not each goal necessarily, but just see if we can approve a section, like economic development. Does anyone move to approve economic development?
You've already approved what isn't in red, and the language which was there we've removed. So we can probably just go through. I think you're right. I think we should do it one section at a time, but we can probably just go from the beginning. Just see if there are any comments on the on everything in section 1 on economic development. If they're not, we can just vote.
Okay, any comments on economic development? If there are no comments, we can move, someone can move to approve.
I'll move to approve
Thank you, Mike.
the economic development section, or the updates to the economic development section.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that. This is Emma.
Thank you, Emma. I guess discussion again. Hearing no discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing no opposition, we have approved our first topic, the changes. Awesome. So next topic, housing.
So it's the senior housing policy, deleting duplex or triplex, and that was it.
And deleting tiny, deleting
senior.
RVs.
Oh yeah, and deleting RVs. Thank you.
Did
What-
somebody see
Yeah, I was gonna ask to define community-based. I'm not sure I understand what community-based.
I think the committee meant it as different from a private facility, so more of like a quasi-public facility.
Yeah, that's what we were discussing last time. What can we do something to make it clearer?
No, I just wasn't sure what the driver was for it to be community-based versus private.
We're not supporting the development. I think we're pushing for a particular use as opposed to just hoping the private sector does it for us. I mean, we could put public-private partnership or something in there, if that makes it clearer.
Yeah, but what if
community-based, e.g., public-private?
Well, what
Sorry?
if a private? I mean, what if a private company came in and wanted to put in it? Would we not support that?
That isn't what that's not what it's saying. I don't think there's any. The way I see this is we would say that there is a need, and we would have we would support a public. You know, we're supporting a public-private, for example. We want sort of public. You know, we're looking for a public the public the community to be behind a publicly supported at some level development of senior housing. It's not precluding private development. It's just we're not relying on private development. We're going one step beyond that.
Right. Okay. Well,
but it isn't very well phrased.
Change support to a more active verb.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably a good point. We should have something stronger than that.
Pursue again.
Go ahead, Brandon. Why don't you weigh in before we start changing words?
In general, I sometimes in my own work, the term community-based comes up and I can see where we're using it here, but I'm wondering if maybe the based is also somewhat confusing. Maybe it should be something more like, in this type of instance, should be more like responsive. Does that kind of get at anything that what was hanging up you, Shelley? Does that, or does that not really?
No, I think that changes the intent that the committee has. So, I mean, I see where you're going, and that's probably where I would take it to open it up more, but I think that they're looking for a more of a community service type.
Yeah.
Facility.
That's what I recall the discussion from being last time. In the sense that, you know, we have a private organization, happens to be a non-profit, but it's a private organization that runs childcare, but it's definitely tied in with the local government. I mean, we provide a facility at effectively rent-free. So we're not running it, but we're directly supporting it, financially supporting it at some level. So it wouldn't necessarily be the same thing. It's not like, I don't think the idea would be that the GBOS builds senior housing, but it would be a model whereby there's some sort of public-private partnership or some public engagement, some public process or governmental engagement in it.
I kind of like the public-private partnership. I know we use it a lot, but it might be another good place for it. Not to be confused with the payment protection program.
I don't know. Doesn't really work with community-based.
No. Community vetted or
well, we can put we can take out support. So pursue the development of community supported senior housing.
Oh,
And then we
I
could
like
use,
that.
we could still put the, e.g. public-private partnership.
Okay. Excellent. This is getting better. Any other suggestions or comments or questions? The clarifying questions help us see where we can, use different wording to make it more clear. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, I'm gonna move that we approve the updates to the housing section.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we got a motion to approve the updates to the housing section. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion, so.
Thank you, John. All right, discussion. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. All right, hearing none, we are moving on, getting stuff done. It looks like, was that trails and recreational development?
Mhm.
Trails are next.
The only thing was the Trail Town, and we've already worked on that.
Cool.
So I'll continue the pattern and propose or move that we approve the update or the small update to the recreation section.
We have a
I'll
motion.
second that.
Was that Emma?
Yeah, that was Emma.
Great, thanks, Emma. All right, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right. Is this our last one?
It is.
Transportation. What do we got? What's the new thing?
Okay. So the thing under ensuring that Girdwood's transportation infrastructure is resilient if emergency evacuation is necessary, your policy was to create a transportation plan for Girdwood that identifies and addresses weak points in the current infrastructure. So that was the only change you made.
So the plan before was just to point out all the problems, and now we're saying we're going to try and at least try and make an attempt to fix them. With a positive view.
Let's start somewhere.
Okay, I've done the rest. I'll do this one. I move that we approve the update to the transportation section.
We have a motion to approve the updates. Any discussion?
Need a second.
Oh, any seconds? Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, John. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. All right, hearing none, I think we just crushed that, guys. Thank you.
John stepped out and he wanted to say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, John, for being here. We appreciate you. Okay. Woo. Yes, Mike.
Can I just ask, for the purposes of the minutes, there's a couple of people, or two people I don't recognize on the list. There's a Bob and WMB something. WMB, sorry, I need to put my glasses on. I can't quite read it.
It's Bobian.
Oh, right, WM Bobian.
And then
This is Brianna. I wasn't unmuted at the right time, but I'm going to leave at about 7, just so you know. I'm listening and everything's being heard. Thank you for all of your time.
thanks, Brianna. And then Bob, do you want to introduce yourself?
Bob Messing. So I can see if I can turn off the video or turn on the video or something.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Hi, Bob.
I was just sitting down for dinner and I saw that it was started, so I wanted to listen in and see what was going on.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for your work.
Same here.
And WM. Who we got?
Hi, Seth and Wendy Bobian, new here. This is our second winter. Same thing, got to dinner and sorry for getting in late. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, it's the virtual meetings are pretty great for getting to listen while eating dinner. Used to be like always hungry in the middle of meetings. So, all right. Thank you for the clarifying questions, Mike. And yeah, let's move on to number 8, focus group approach. Holly, I think that's you.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a combination of all of us, actually. But so I've started to pencil in a calendar, so now you have your, I already closed them, but you have your vision and goals, right? And so now we need to start putting these to action. And, normally what we do is we'd sit around the table with all of you and we'd have mapping work sessions with trace and markers, and we'd start, we'd have all the layers on the map, all the, the avalanche zones and the streams and the creeks and the zoning and the land use, what it is now, and we match that up against what you want it to be, like the things you've articulated, how you want your community to be. And so what we need to start doing is we need to start mapping where you are now from a land use perspective to where you need to be. And I'm gonna go to the top again. We have these 4 areas that we're focused on: economic development, housing, recreation and natural space, and transportation. So the goal would be to have, I would say, maybe 2 or 3 different maps. One would be a land use map, and one would be a transportation system map. The third map could be a recreation and natural space map, but that might be encompassed in the land use map. I think that's how it'll end up unfolding, but we could separate it out too, knowing how important recreation and natural space is to Girdwood. So that's why I say either 2 or 3 maps. And then each focus group then would get to work on figuring out how to implement these policies and goals, and what that looks like. And not every item is going to have an action on a map, right? But the goal is to, because in Title 21 in code, there are things that are required of an area-wide plan like this, and one of them is a land use map. And so that's going to be the goal. That's going to be the thinking that we're going to start doing. And this is a combination, because this is a community-driven plan. These focus groups, I'm thinking, in order to be the most impactful should be a combination of community members who care about that topic, but also experts who also know about that topic so that you can have a more informed discussion. So I'd like to do 4 focus groups by the time you have your next meeting. And you're not going to get all the work done, right? But you're going to start thinking about the work. And what we need to do is we need to figure out how we're going to, I would say like 5 or 6 people at each one to start working. And we need to figure out a process to like figure that out. Who's going to participate? So, okay, Shelley first and then Brendan.
Sorry. 2 things. First of all, will we, at some point, we need a land suitability analysis, right? We talked with Michelle and them about that. So do you see that as coming before or after this?
I would say that it would be part of the discussion, like, you know, as you have maps to talk about the future, that'll be one of the existing condition maps that's there for people to use as a resource. So yeah.
Okay. My other concern is that, you know, we're using public funds for this. So when you start limiting it, that's not in the spirit of the assembly resolution that released this process to Girdwood Inc. So I'd like to consider that very carefully.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, I guess I think I would agree with what Shelley said. The second point that Shelley said about that issue of inclusivity. I also wonder, I'm just trying to, and maybe I could hear more from you, Holly, about sort of how you envision it. I'm just kind of imagining it, you know, hypothetical in my head of how this happens, right? And it seems like we could potentially get into the situation where we come up with 4 different, like all of these 4 different maps basically that are not really reconciled with each other. And we obviously we would work to fix that, but you know, people could be putting houses where there's trails, and to put it in the sort of simplest, you know, example or something like that. I mean, does it make more sense for us to start at some sort of like other level, like zoning? Are all the zones where we want them to be, and then working on down together so that we're all always looking at the same set of stuff, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I think you just described us. So just so you know, there's not going to be 4 maps. Like each group isn't gonna like create their own map. It's kind of like gonna build on one another. So maybe we don't start with recreation and natural space, but I think what you would describe, Brendan, is something where we just work as a committee of the whole and we go through the list. I'm trying to figure out a way to move a little faster, but if you guys don't want to move faster, we can keep working as a committee of the whole. I think this allows you, a focus group process allows you to break up into smaller work groups and then come back together. So there's, I guess, 2 ways to do it. Committee of the whole or smaller groups. Well, I guess there's probably a million ways to do it, but those are 2 right now.
I think you could do both. Doesn't Zoom allow for breakouts from a larger meeting?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
So everybody could show up, and then when it comes time for a small group discussion, you can have small group discussion. I don't know.
Also, you know, we have had working groups, and maybe we don't call them focus groups, and we don't limit the amount of people. And even in our off meetings, like our working groups, just not our regularly scheduled meeting, it limits the amount of people that end up coming just naturally, because not people can't come to so many meetings, and so they go to the ones that they're really focused on. So maybe we just make them 4 working groups once a week, or what is this, 2 times a week for over 2 weeks, and let the natural divides happen.
So actually, let's go down. Can we go down the road that Shelley just brought up? Because that to me is a way to do, it's kind of like a meld of both methods. Because what we could do is we could do a 2-hour session where we start the session with like a presentation of what Shelley was describing, which is like a suitability analysis, like this is your existing conditions. And so we give that presentation to the whole group. And then we break out and give people a task in each one of these focus groups. So that could really be, that would be a way to move fast as well. The thing we would need to ensure that happens is that there's someone in each one of those rooms that is an expert, so that and that's, we can make that happen. We can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, we can. I think that you have to, like, the host assigns people to breakout rooms, if I understand it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So we can already have people designated as kind of the facilitators of each group, and then maybe people either RSVP, and then those who didn't show up and didn't RSVP for a specific group, they tell us in the chat, so we can do some one-offs, you know, spur of the moment, but for the most part we have it planned ahead of time, so it's not so much work in the moment. Because I've definitely been there where we've tried in other forums to just spur of the moment break into groups, and it was very confusing.
Yeah, I have the ability to pre-assign groups, so.
Would this be a regular meeting, or would this be like a work session between our next two, or between now and our next one?
I think it would be a regular meeting. Go ahead, Brandon.
I guess I would say that I kind of like Amanda's original idea that you had about a series of sort of work sessions, I think, or whatever we called them before, work sessions, I think we called them. Before, where that's totally open, but then it naturally filters probably based on interest. Because my concern, and I think the concern would still happen if we had breakout groups, is that a lack of crosstalk during making them is what the problem will be. We'll create a problem for ourselves to reconcile them at the end. I think also, we'd probably be kidding ourselves if we thought that we would be able to create small focus groups that adequately represented the spectrum of interests in each one. If you know what I mean? Like, there's just, it's going to be hard in that sense. So having it open to everyone, but then, so then we're at least sure that, like, you know, whatever it is, 5-6 people are always knowing, you know, when you move from one topic to the next, what happened at the other one. Because if you don't know that, then you're going to get ideas that I can't see how you wouldn't get ideas that don't overlap with each other. And then we're gonna have to figure out how to reconcile it. And do we bring all those people back together again? You know,
I think I'm not trying to be adversarial. You know that, Brendan. I'm just bringing up another idea. Like, I think at some point you have to have trust in your community members that they're going to be able to get in a small group and have a discussion, and then come back and report what they talked about. And then we would all discuss that too. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of processes that do that.
it's not an issue of trust. It's an issue of, I mean, if you think about the practicalities, I mean, what's the end product for each activity, right? I mean, in some sense, we're trying to design spatial ideas for each of these because they have to manifest themselves spatially, right, on a land use map. And so if you have 4 topics, that have obvious sort of potential overlaps, right? Because an area, say, could be zoned for this or it could be zoned for that. You know, whenever somebody's in a group, right, you come up with an idea for transportation, and the idea generally ends up being like a system because you want it to all work in a particular way. But then if you go to another group and they're not thinking about that system, you've like ripped one cog out of the, you know, you're going to come back and you're going to have 4 sets of probably competing spatial ideas. And it's not a matter of trust. It's more a matter of how the heck do we reconcile that when we get back together? Because you're probably going to then have to pull all those people in together again and go, well, if we pull this out to accommodate that, does it still do the system? You know, I'm thinking about the actual practical. I'm just imagining what's going to happen. I think we might end up adding time as opposed to subtracting time.
Can I go back to an earlier question, still related to this? The way I saw the focus groups was to come out with at least, you know, subtopics for the implementation section, and not necessarily working on the maps directly, although I see how they're closely related. Can we look at it that way, of having focus groups primarily look at the implementation topics and identify what those topics are, and then have the map process following on from that? So we have a list of sort of projects or potential projects sort of in our mind, along with current conditions and the land suitability analysis, and then we go through map making as a sort of later process.
Yeah, and my response to that is, like, I think you're onto something, because I think what I was thinking is that we're not going to make decisions on these maps yet, right? But we are at a point where we need to start referring to actual things on the ground to start making them real. Because I've held back from going to the maps immediately, right? Because I wanted, and you created this amazing set of vision, goals, and policies based on your vision for your community for the future. So now that we've done that, we do need to start having some actual spatial discussions, but we're not making decisions yet. So I think Mike is onto something.
Shall we have the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Shelley.
No, Amanda, you go first.
Amanda, then Shelley.
Oh, I was just going to suggest that we have the base, maybe this, gosh, dang it, what was it called? The suitability analysis kind of maps or something, just to reference to for the implementation discussion. That was just a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I agree with Holly in that maybe if we look at this as less of a map exercise and more of a concept for implementation, that's probably a good direction to go, because not everyone's going to have the technical expertise. I mean, map exercises in these groups are fun. It's, you know, cool to see what ideas come out, but generally, you know, the lay person isn't going to be able to know if that location is suitable for that use. So yeah, I would support a more concept-based discussion probably at this point.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, is concept-based. It's like ideas, but they're starting to be spatially based, right? So they're like bigger circles on maps than detailed circles on maps. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say in some cases they're not necessarily tied directly to the map.
Right.
They can be, or they're so specific that it's not really it's already, there's no question about it. It's, you know, something specific happening in at the resort base area or something else. But what I'm seeing is focus groups to sort of at least identify and pull out these sort of topics and potential projects as another set of inputs, but no decisions. And then in parallel, we have the discussions with the major stakeholders, which will also tie in their considerations and their plans. And then that big pile of things gets sort of, you know, pushed together into a series of 2 or 3 maps, plus a list of projects which go into the implementation section. But where they have space, where there's spatial meaning and where there's spatial coordination needed, then they tie into the maps.
As long as the trolley system is on all the maps.
The space pod as well, we need that.
For those of you who don't know, is it the Crow Creek neighborhood plan, I think?
I think
that
it's
has a
Crow Creek, yeah, has a trolley system.
Throughout Girdwood. It's fun to see.
It's a vision.
It is a vision.
Individual transportation pods is in the area 95 area plan.
Yeah.
And we will have that soon.
I think those are called kick sleds.
One wheels, isn't it?
Okay, so it doesn't seem like we've made a decision. I think we've figured out that it's more concept based toward implementation discussions. And maybe maps are just look at this to give yourself a reference while we talk about it.
Yeah, we'll be using maps as a tool for sure, but it will be at a conceptual stage. Because people need to start like understanding what the results of these goals and policies might mean. Because right now they're about they're about feelings and values that you have about your community. I mean, it's not that fluffy, but it's about an image that you have for your community, right? And so now we need to start making sure we're all on the same page for what that means when you implement and start putting things on a map. And obviously you have to start conceptually. My friends would call it an arm waving session.
So for focus groups, individual meetings, or I like the breakout sessions, I really do. My one hesitation is that if somebody wants to go to multiple of them, then they can't. But we were originally thinking it was going to be a limited gathering, which we were going to try not to have multiple people at them necessarily anyways, because of that limited number. I don't know. I'm just going to stop talking because I'm thinking out loud.
So you could set, I'll let you go, Brendan. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, I mean, we've kind of seen different versions of this worry before about being swamped or whatever, but our average meeting size is probably somewhere in the 5 to 15 person range, right? Like, what exactly is the worry here about having subsequent meetings where it's open to everybody? And then we take steps to ensure that a certain expert or experts is at each one. I never really understand where this is coming from, because I've been involved in this for years now, and I've never once been to a meeting where we've said, oh, geez, we had so many people that we couldn't get anything done. Like, literally never.
I don't think it's about the amount of people. I think it's about a timeline. So why don't we talk about, I also do think though, Brendan, I do want to say this. I recently was in a breakout session where I think there'll be, in a meeting typically, whether it's this meeting or any meeting I do, you have a handful of people who talk more and people who don't participate as much. And sometimes I think when you break up into smaller groups, more people have the opportunity to participate or feel comfortable participating. So there's that element. But I'm not sure we have that here, but I mean, human dynamics are the same. Go ahead.
If we get into a larger group, okay, so let's say we did 4 separate groups, and I don't know, transportation had 20 people show up to it. We could break into 4 different 5-person groups if we felt like we had enough people to facilitate, and then come back together and discuss, leave time for that. That could be a possibility.
That's a great idea. That's a good way to deal with that.
I mean, that's how you generally would do it. Then you have a plenary or something at the end, you know?
Googling plenary.
It's basically just you have the breakout groups, and then everybody quote unquote reports back.
I
And
know. I'm
it's
just,
yeah, I know you probably know, but yeah, I mean, I think that that problem can be facilitated by, that's a great solution that Amanda had. Like, then you can still keep the openness, but you can have the subsequent ones, but then you can also, if you run into the problem, then you've got like a ready-made solution. And then you also have the facilitation response too, which is just sort of like, okay, we've got 15 people here and 7 of them are not saying anything. Let's make sure that we take a breath every 15 to do spot checks on everybody, you know, like, hey, Bob and Sally, do you, I don't think, oh, there's a Bob. Sorry, Bob, whoever you are. um, hey, Robert and Sally, do you want to comment or something like that? Just et cetera.
so here's what I think we need to decide then. We need to decide if you want to do 4 meetings before your next meeting in April, or if you want to spread them out over 2 months. I think that's what I want you to talk about next, because I think I'm hearing, unless somebody objects, that we're going to do 4 separate meetings. Anybody can come. We'll have a plan for that.
I'm a fan of powering through, but I don't know. You know, I mean, here's the thing. We're going to start losing people in May and June. I don't know if anybody here we're going to lose, but you know, I think this is a good time to really push and get input before summer. So I would ask maybe that we figure out a way to advertise it. I don't know if we can have Margaret Facebook it or something, but it would be nice to advertise it a little. Anybody else want to power through?
I'm gonna ask slightly different or make a slightly different comment before I address that. I'm hearing a lot of concern that to me seems to be based on an assumption that these focus groups, whatever you call them, are gonna come up with definitive lists. The way I see this is a seeding exercise. You know, this is we're making sure that we capture a bunch of specific things, specific projects, specific things for implementation. This is by no means meant to be complete. We still have the whole implementation section to write. We'll have plenty of opportunity for public comment and public input to that as well. I think it's important we get people in the room who've got the right level of expertise and the right level of engagement outside of this group as well as this group, to bring in specifics which are specific things which we want to look at as projects, or that other people want to look at as projects. So I'm just hearing a lot of discussion which seems to be discussing in a way that isn't the way I view these. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm seeing this much more of a seeding exercise than a sort of definitive. Here are the things, the full list of things we're going to deal with in the implementation section.
Well, I guess that, I don't know, did I miss something, or do we know that there will be further public meetings down the road? Have we talked about that?
Yes, there will definitely be, there's supposed to be 2 more at least. One more is about the land use map itself. And the other one is meant to be the public meeting when we have a draft before it goes through. So our own sort of presenting it to the community before it goes through the formal public process. So there's 2 more rounds of public meetings. But I mean, in the process, we're going to be reviewing work as it's going on and adding stuff and making sure it covers things. And so there's still public meetings going on in the meantime.
Just seems like we could answer that question by just making sure we do a lot of brainstorming and making sure that who are those experts, and making sure that they're at those meetings, right? It's more of an additive thing as opposed to, you know, keeping it open, I think, is not a problem, but we do want to do brainstorming to make sure that some people who we want there are not there, right?
Right, I agree. That's why we want, you know, the point of the focus groups is to provide focus. It's to make sure we have, I mean, the problem with meetings like this is we cover many things. Lots of people are not going to be engaged in they might be engaged on one or two things, but not all of them. So the focus group is about a single topic, which, the same is true for workshops. We can do the same thing with workshops. We can have it in a single topic where everyone's engaged throughout that process, but it's limited in time. So we can do that by limiting it to these four main areas, and then that gets collated into land use map, and there's a review process for that as well. And we could do something similar to the what we did with trails and have sort of a public version of that for further input.
I'm gonna ask for somebody's opinion that doesn't talk a lot. Like, I don't know, maybe Emma or somebody else who has an opinion on this, on how they would.
I'll share my opinion. When I heard Shelley say people are going to disappear in May and June, that's me. So I do agree there's, an urgency just sort of seasonally, but then Mike sort of pointed out something that I also agree with, that there's more public comment. So, there's not the urgency in that way to make everybody show up. It's just the beginnings, the seed idea. So that's where I'm at. I'm sort of I'm in complete trust of what you guys choose, because I think that there's good room for debate and discussion.
Thank you, Emma.
Anyone else have an opinion?
Hey, this is Tim. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Let's go to Jen first, and we'll go to Tim next. Go ahead, Jen, and we'll go to Tim.
I just wanted to quickly address the business of some people leaving. I just wanted to make sure we understand that there are also some people who come and arrive. So, excuse me, I know that we have people, particularly for the fishing and recreation industry in Prince William Sound, who move into town at the same time as we have some of our winter folks moving out. So in terms of getting the broad perspective, that it's not true that the summer people aren't invested. They're just invested in a different way.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just I don't have a problem with any of the ways they do it, whether they have the subcommittees or however, but you got such a small group here. To put it in perspective, our land use meetings sometimes will have double this many people at them, sometimes triple. And so this is a pretty small group. And I was just watching what you guys all passed today. There wasn't any discussion, and there was no one against anything. And I didn't say anything, but I think you guys passed an awful lot of sweeping things today and we'll see what happens when the maps come out and things like that. But it sure would be nice if we could start at least thinking about maybe getting back to some actual meetings in person. I know that that's still a little ways out, but most people I know, most people in my circle have already had COVID and or are vaccinated. And I don't think that, I think if we had a meeting now and then that was an actual meeting, people would be less likely to, at meetings in person, people tend to speak up more than they do on these little virtual things. So I think you'll get a little bit more input from the public if we ever had any meetings in person again. And I'd like to see some meetings in person before we actually put the final drafts on this thing. These public meetings are great because you can still have them in this atmosphere, but I really believe that we should have some actual and the community center is plenty big to space chairs out and take precautions. I just got off an airplane, and geez, if you guys have been on an airplane lately, they're squeezed in there pretty tight and everybody still lives. So you guys had any thoughts about that at all?
It's on the agenda later, Tim. That very question, item 11.
What's that?
I said there is a discussion item later about what we do about in-person meetings.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Rebecca, did you want to weigh in? No. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you came off mute. I didn't mean to call on you. Okay.
Are you calling on me or not?
Well, if you have something to say, please speak. You came off a mute and I just wanted to make sure that you were addressed.
Well, I think having some in-person meetings, I think you're doing some wonderful work. And as soon as we could get back to that safely and everybody feels comfortable, I would agree with trying to get more of those set up. Thank you.
Go ahead, Shelley.
I don't think I'm eligible to make a motion.
No, you're not.
But if I was, I'd make one that said that we go with those 4 dates as a group, and Holly is nimble and decides if we need to break out as we figure out what the group looks like. So if somebody wants to steal that, go ahead.
Is that for one date or multiple dates? Sorry.
Let me pull it up. I'll share my screen again. Hold on.
I meant for the 4 that she showed earlier.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the suggestion here is we have 4, we can call focus groups or work sessions in mid-April. Do you have any idea of who the invitees would be? So they're open to the public as well, but we also have groups or representative groups as invitees.
Okay, let's start with things like this. I don't have a huge, I've been thinking about it. I don't have a huge list, but okay. So recreation and natural space, I think Kyle Kelly's got to be in the room. Economic development, I think maybe your local chamber of commerce should be in the room.
I'd recommend Chris Sheedy also. I mean, he knows the mechanisms by which things can happen, so he could be helpful.
Transportation, I feel like, what do I feel like? Do you guys have a local person that you call for DOT related things?
No.
No.
Kyle Kelly is our roads guy.
I mean, we have, yeah, there's several DOT engineers who live in town, so we live in Girdwood, so we hassle them.
Sean Gardner, maybe?
Gardner, you said?
Isn't that her name? SHAWN?
She's a planner.
Okay, well.
That might be good.
I mean, she's doing the airport plan
Yeah.
update, so.
Yeah, I can provide that info.
Like this?
And then I can provide a name and contact.
Oh,
Yeah, GVT is the other thing. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we even need a I wonder if Jamie Acton has opinions, or is that outside their service area? See, I don't even know that.
Yeah,
So
she doesn't do Girdwood.
Is that for AMATs?
It would be an AMATs thing, right?
Yeah, AMATs is just a bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, so Jamie is the director of transportation, which would include the bus system here. So
Public transit,
she's not, and we're not in, Girdwood's not in AMATs, so.
No.
Nope.
Although an integration across would be useful.
Yeah.
Ooh, what about the railroad?
Yeah, railroad's the other thing. And the other thing we might want to do is include a representative for the airport. They have a user group.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, okay.
Well, I meant users of the airport, not the owner of the airport.
Oh.
For housing, I would suggest obviously Mike and Christina Hendrickson and Crystal, but maybe
Yeah,
Mike had more
Crystal
ideas.
wanted to make her.
So from
Community land trust.
Community land trust.
I know I'm trying, I was gonna write, that's the Great Land Trust.
Just seal thing.
Yeah, Christina can speak for the Alaska Home Builders Association, or we could have Eric Visser come.
Yeah, you really want representation of building development funding, ideally.
What is the name, Shelley?
Christina.
Or Eric.
Or Eric Visser.
How about Kevin McDermott?
Yeah, build local building. And then the other thing is businesses which have see housing as one of their big issues. So the resort might be a good example of that. I don't know if they still have a housing manager. I think they do.
They just hired a new one.
Right. And then, yeah, again, under recreation, natural space, probably there's a, we have all the other major owners. So we have the federal representative, state representative, and resort.
All these people showing up hour and a half late. I don't see them. I don't know, Shelley, I'm just assuming you're going to be at all of them. Is that true?
Yeah, unless something else is, you know, earth-shatteringly important, which I don't foresee.
The resort for recreation, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you.
So that'll, I mean, more specifically, it's probably going to be someone like Brian Burnett or similar.
So, yeah, so then like things we were talking about before, I'm going to put a couple of things up here that are maybe not, don't fill into a group, but that we're probably going to want to have a conversation with. What else aren't we thinking of?
I was thinking DOT railroad, but we've of course covered those under housing. Oh, the other thing under housing is something like Vacasa or one of the other Airbnb organizations.
Oh.
There's also the Salmonberry shuttle that could be transportation. And I'm not sure about the ride share from the resort.
Yeah, I was thinking about all those. Mike, that was it, do these people have, is this what it is? Vacasa?
Yeah, Vacasa. It's it's basically a mini platform and a short-term rental organization that does management. But they have about 150 properties here, or did have.
Do they have a local person?
Yeah, they have a local manager. Yeah.
Okay.
Although I don't know who it is currently. They did get rid of a bunch of staff a while ago, so.
Would daycare fall under economic development? Should we have Little Bears or something?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I mean, this is all we're doing. I just want to remind myself, apart from anything else, what we're doing is saying these are the groups we think should be there. We're not. This isn't by any means limited. These are still public meetings, so anyone can come to any of these.
Right.
We're just trying to say these are the areas of expertise we'd really like to be represented.
Yeah.
Or interest, I should say, not necessarily expertise.
Yeah.
If we do have a stakeholder list, if we want to just like at some point before we really make these groups, or as we're trying to invite people, we can refer back to that and just be like, okay, what are we missing?
What about Theed Tobish, Shelley? Should he come to transportation and housing, maybe? A municipal planner?
I don't know. I would invite, I'd probably invite Michelle and Dave and Carol and let them figure it out.
Yeah, to everything.
I think Theed's a short timer, I think. I don't know when his date is, but I think it's soon.
Okay, so in the interest of time, maybe we kind of wrap this up because we still have a couple of bigger discussions, update on Holton Hills Incorporation and in-person meetings before we break. We got a half hour left. Any other things pressing?
Can we turn this into something that's a decision?
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I don't know if we need to do this as a motion or not, but I just want to summarize it and I'll put this in a minute. So what I think we're deciding, actually, let's make a motion. So we're going to hold, I move that we hold 4 separate meetings on the different topic areas. So we'll call the work sessions or focus groups, whatever the group decides, on the dates presented in April on each of these topic areas, and make sure that we invite stakeholders for each area of which have identified most of them in this document. I'll add this to the minutes.
Do we have a second?
This is Kaylee. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Not discussion as opposed, but I would say that for the recreation natural space, I would like to see and I apologize for being late, but I would like to see a representative from Girdwood Trails, and I'm happy to do that, as well as other trails concerns.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I wasn't sure when to throw this out there, but I think I noticed there's all this concern about long-term rental, and I so rarely hear any mention of a representative for long-term rentals. Well, I'm not sure entirely who that would be, possibly the Mattingleys. There are other options. I think if that's going to be a goal, that they have to be specifically invited to the table as much as possible.
So
there isn't an organization, is there, as you just identified, so that's kind of problematic. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations?
Well, I know there's not a local, but we don't have a local builder organization or a local, you know, we've been naming individuals this whole time. So, yeah, I mean, the Mattingleys come to mind as, or Jackie Graham both have numerous, or our local, even our local long-term rental manager. So yeah, who's, I just blanked on his name, Scott Kirk.
Yeah, so that's on the supply side. We probably want some representation on the demand side as well, don't we?
I believe Scott rents as many places out as anybody in the valley, and it's all long term.
And who does he work for himself? Who does he work for?
Yeah, it's like Girdwood Realty or something is the name of his business.
Girdwood Realty. He's got a little office next to the bake shop.
And Mattingly, Jen, is that a family, and do they do long-term rentals? What do they do?
Yeah, probably Scott's the best bet in terms of, I think, as Tim said, he does the most, and he's the most heavily invested. So if you can bring him to the table, and then barring that, then there are people, individuals who are handling their own private properties primarily.
Okay.
I think, yeah, yeah.
What about Glacier City Realty? They do a lot of long-term.
No, they're not doing those as much anymore.
Okay, fair enough.
Cool. Great idea.
Awesome. Okay, any other discussion? All right, hearing no more discussion, vote in favor of, let's see, what was the motion?
I've summarized it as hold 4 separate focus group work sessions in mid-April, all open to the public.
Okay, that is the vote. All in favor, I say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, hearing none, we're gonna approve. So moving on, thanks guys, really good work. I think we got a lot of good discussion and came out with a good product, hopefully. We'll see soon. Be on the lookout for more on focus groups. So Holton Hills, Mike, is this you?
I'll happily speak to it. I don't have an update on Holton Hills, but I would ask, I mean, the last
Shelley?
I would ask Shelley, yes, I'd ask HLB if they have any update on the process there.
Sure. And I know you sent me an email earlier asking.
Just warning you.
Right, warning me. No, you asked me.
I think I asked you 2 things, and what the update was.
Did you
if
get
we
any
had clarification from
clarification?
planning, yes.
About how an updated comp plan would affect a development project. So all I can say is that until a new plan is adopted, obviously the old plan rules. I mean, you can't let a draft document that hasn't been approved by anybody guide a meeting process. Hold on. Don't.
I was about to cough.
Oh, okay. But we are committed, and I actually discussed this with Chris Judy and Robin a couple days ago, that I will take the visions and goals, which is why I was looking for them, and I will try to prioritize those visions and goals within the RFP. So I'd like to prioritize, a proposal with ADUs. I'd like to prioritize one with multifamily or multi and single family, all of those things. So we will work into the RFP as much of the new visions and goals as we can. And I think that's the best we can do. Nothing that we've discussed indicates to me in any way that either the zoning or the intent for the Holton Hills area is changing through this process. I mean, it may when we get through these map exercises and things like that, but you know, we're trying to be as responsive as we can to what the community needs and is asking for. So that's probably the best I can give you at this point. I don't know how satisfactory that is, but we are still on track for April 1.
Sorry, Shirley. Do we have a date for when the RFP is expected to come out?
April 1.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I've already provided a draft, and I actually had several of those things prioritized in it, but I want to go back and just see if there are any other things that I can work in that would help the situation.
I think the question I had was if on, I don't know, let's pick a date. Let's say 1st of January, because it's an easy date. If a new plan applied from the 1st of January or the 20th of April or August or whenever it is, if there's a development process which requires multiple stages, it'll require platting, it'll require probably, you know, development plans, site plans, all sorts of stuff going on. At what point does effectively the, you know, everything become grandfathered under the old comprehensive plan and can ignore the new comprehensive plan? That was kind of my question for planning. So if you do the platting action, are you then basically guaranteed you don't have to pay attention to the new plan because the platting was done under the old plan? Or is it at the point at which you do you know, a master site plan?
It is whenever you submit the application for whichever process, whether that be a plat or a rezone or a master site plan or any of that, it would be governed by current code and current plans. I'll see if I can find the
right, except for the case when it's actually it's governed by the previous plan. So that my question isn't, can we, you know, can it be preempted? Can we, you know, if the platting action is the first action and we don't have a new comprehensive plan, you know, I understand it'll be under the old one, but does that mean that, you know, as we know, when Title 21 was adopted, there was a transition period when other, you know, when you build something, it's the date on which the, you know, the permit is brought out or the construction is finished, depending exactly what it is when it applies, and then that's true forever, whatever happens to subsequent plans. So at what point can you kind of put the stake in the sand or the gravel and say, you know, this whole project is under the plan that's in force today, irrespective of whether a new plan comes along in the next 3 years while I'm doing this development, or 8 years, or however long it is. If it's the case of platting, it's probably 7 years, isn't it, before you have to, all these plats are active. So that was kind of the question for planning.
Yeah, no, what somebody helped me here. A prelim plat's good for like 2 years, I think. It's not good for long. So I'll have to suss that, because that's more extensive than you know, my answer to you. Mine is just regarding the RFP, but I will see what I can suss out of planning as to if different pieces of the same development would be governed by 2 different area plans, which I think they would, frankly.
Right. Yeah. Probably right.
So I'll work on that.
So maybe it's a question of phasing.
Yes, maybe come back to me at the end of the meeting after I've like seen if I can read this tiny print, and I'll see if I have an answer, a better answer.
I'm not positive, but I think a preliminary plat is 2 years, 18 months for a short plat, I think it is. And I believe anything over 5 acres in Heritage Land Bank or anything like that has to go through a master plan process anyway, which takes quite a while.
There's already a master plan.
Oh, you already have the master plan for that.
And then neighborhood plan, right.
And then if you end up with you know, one plan kind of being implemented in the other plan. What they've done before is like when Chapter 9 was implemented, you had a period of time where you could apply under your choice of what plan. And I imagine they would probably do the same thing if it was, you know, they'd have so many months where you could apply under the old plan or the new plan, whichever you choose.
Did you say there's already an area master plan for Holton Hills?
The Crow Creek neighborhood plan.
Okay.
Yeah, that would govern.
It's
That
GR3.
covers multiple neighborhoods up there, not just Holton Hills. Holton Hills is what's considered the lower matrix.
Yep.
If you look in that plan.
And what was the year that master plan was put in?
Good question. Let me grab it. Hold on.
I think it was 2006 or 2007. One of those two. I think.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up. Let's see.
And is it once it's in, it's forever, or is it updated?
I don't think that there's a requirement that it be updated. No, not like an area plan.
But if it was inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, then
Right.
it would be an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, just in the interest of time, so we can try to finish near our regular time, is there anything else that we need to discuss before moving on?
Nope. Crack the whip. Move to the
All right.
next one.
Mike, you good?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Incorporation, is this you, Mike?
Yeah, I guess. The we've had quite a lot of comment criticism from at least one party about the process and organization of Imagine Girdwood. I don't know if they want to speak to that. But one thing that was very clear from reading through that and thinking about it is that we probably need to be on a more solid legal footing as an entity, because we're currently not, whereas we're not incorporated as a legal entity. So it's kind of a collection of individuals. And that poses a set of problems. If we're an entity, then we can put together bylaws and things like that. So the suggestion here is that we go forward and do an incorporation. We're not going to go all the way through and create a 501c3. It just doesn't make sense given the temporary nature of this project. But we would at least go forward and create a a non-profit corporation called Imagine Girdwood, and then we can we'll have articles of incorporation. We can put bylaws next to that, and we'll be we can have a legal entity. We can provide indemnity insurance and things like that as well, if that's valuable. So there's a set of advantages in doing that. So that's the proposal.
Any discussion, questions, comments, concerns?
Shelley has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how that benefits the process. The requirement of the resolutions and assembly action and such, just said you were the Girdwood Area Plan Update Committee, which is an entity separate from government. How does that preclude you from creating bylaws for your committee?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
How come you can't create bylaws, sideboards, all of that?
I'm not saying
now?
we can't. I'm saying it's a much more solid proposition if we have a legal entity, which itself is the thing that has bylaws. There's no legal entity at the moment. It's a name and a collection of individuals. There isn't a thing itself.
Right. Well, I mean, the assembly granted the authority to do this and they specifically called out Girdwood Inc.
Right, which is the
Um,
non-profit, which is the
right.
financial sponsor of this organization.
Right. But
So that's where the
not spelled
501c3
out.
lies.
Yeah, it's just not spelled out that way in the ordinance, that they're separate from the Girdwood Area Plan update.
Right, because I don't think it was separate when we started. I don't think we had clarity on what we needed to do.
So don't you think that maybe the assembly, you would need to consult the assembly, because if you alter the process, you're probably not authorized.
So what do you think? What's your interpretation, Shelley, of what the ordinance says, or what the ordinance is, who the ordinance is actually approving? Is it Girdwood Inc?
I'll have to hold on. Let me see if I can find it again.
Because there isn't such a thing as Girdwood Area Plan Update Committee.
Well, that's what you're called and everything. So,
Yeah, that's what we were called.
well, that's who's authorized. That's what I'm saying. That's where the stickiness happens, I think.
But you know, there's a DBA model, so.
Hold on. A resolution authorizing the Girdwood Area Plan Update Committee and Girdwood Inc. to proceed with the development of an update of the Girdwood Area Plan.
So it doesn't specify what the Girdwood Area Plan Update Committee is. That was my reading was it's not precluded at all by the ordinance, but I wondered if you had a different interpretation.
I haven't looked at it closely enough. This came out of left field. So I haven't had time to really get an interpretation. And I just didn't understand where it was coming from and how it improved the situation.
It's the only way it improves it is it's a real thing. So at the moment there isn't a thing, there isn't a legal entity. It's kind of an emergent thing. It's not a defined thing. And this would make it a defined thing. It would be an incorporated entity. So it would be separate from a set of particular individuals in a legal sense.
Okay, so maybe we got some more research to do.
Brendan
and
has
this
his
is-
hand up. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Brendan has his hand up.
Thank you. I should have my participants up. My bad. Go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I guess one thing that might be worth thinking as well is this was not all the way through to a C3. Wouldn't that subject the funds to taxation, meaning that a substantial portion of project funds might actually be diverted to just banks, basically paying taxes on it? I don't know that, whether or not, but I would imagine that's the case. My other point is that I have no problem, admitting I'm probably the party in question who has prompted this, and I actually don't think that this approach really solves anything, at least from the issues that I'm raising. And there are issues that I've raised for people who have been involved in this process for years, who know that I've raised them many times and pretty much to no avail. And my bottom line has always been that the body and its various guises has had a lot of problems with transparency and openness and inclusivity. And my view has always been that anyone who lives in Girdwood who wants to be completely involved in all of the group's activities and communications at any and every level should be able to be. And without getting into specifics, that's just not the case. And I think actually becoming a legally incorporated nonprofit would actually set in stone many of the problems. In fact, the sort of circle of who's eligible to be on a board or an executive committee would be closed. It wouldn't be subject to election. The who is communicated with whom would be closed. And so I think, you know, noticing requirements would be different. Just for example, so I would think that this is not the way to solve the problem if that's what it's seen as. I think just sort of, you know, taking some pretty simple steps to, you know, if anybody asks to be included in all activities and communications, have at it. That's, you know, I think if that's what we're trying to address here, there's a lot of other simpler things along the lines of what Shelley is saying. There's nothing stopping us from having bylaws, for example, in the current form that we're in now, as far as I understand it, or, you know, operating principles or procedures. So
Who has those bylaws, Brendan? So I just wondered if you could back up any of those statements with any evidence. So you're saying it would be more closed if it was a, because it's nothing at the moment. It isn't a thing. There is no legal entity. So there's no rules at all in effect.
Well, we had bylaws and operating procedures when it was under the area plan, and they sort of just,
Right,
when it was
and
under
we
DBUS,
don't
and
have
they-
so we by having bylaws, and they can say everything has to be public. They can say everything. What would you like them to say, Brendan? You can be part of that process.
Yeah, that would be great. We should develop those. I mean,
So
do you want me to
we
develop them right
want
now?
to do. I think we want bylaws. So this is a mechanism which gives us a mechanism to do that. And I would say actually most of the statements you made there are completely incorrect.
No, that's not true. But
well, again, if you can provide any evidence, that would be great.
that's fantastic. I have provided evidence, and I provided to you by email, and I've mentioned it at multiple meetings.
Sorry,
and
about this sort of structure being less open. I haven't seen anything along those lines at all.
No, about the other issues. And
right. Well, I'm talking specifically about whether this is a mechanism that provides a solution and solves some other problems in the process.
If you want to create a nonprofit, any 3 incorporators can do that, which means that there would be no public process for determining who those 3 incorporators are. And the incorporators in the first meeting can determine the board of directors. Again, not a public process. So there you go. There are
so
no
if you're objecting to this,
if you could let me finish, Mike.
I will let you finish, Brendan.
Thank you. There are no noticing requirements to the public for the activities, as I mentioned before, which would be another backward step for openness. There are no requirements about notifying the public about communications, which would be a backward step from where it was 2 iterations ago. So those are all points of evidence.
So these are all points of evidence relative to what we are not, but what we used to be. So my goal here is to try and move us forward, which we can do. And I think it sounds like what you want is this to be a part of local government, which is another option, I suppose. And I think everything else you've said, in most cases evidence-free, suggests that it's going to be worse if we move away from where we are now, which is not having a structure, to having a structure. And I understand.
I didn't say it would be worse. I said it would institutionalize or it would set in stone the problems which I've identified. And if the problem that you're trying to address is transparency, then all you need to do is any informal nonprofit organization of individuals can set a bunch of group rules. You just set them, you vote on them, maybe it's not legally binding, but just because you're not legally required to do something doesn't mean you can't do it. And my point is that if transparency is the issue, and there are X, Y, and Z issues about transparency, and then you pursue an avenue which basically means that you are not legally required to do X, Y, and Z, then that is in essence a backward step, because you basically said, well, yeah, now there's a legal basis for not taking those transparency measures.
Brendan, Shelley has
a possible path.
Shelley?
I didn't catch what Mike just said. What was that, Mike?
I said I understand. So I think what Brendan's saying is there's concern that it could take a path which fossilizes or which formalizes problems that we see now. It's also a mechanism to solve those problems.
So from my perspective, which y'all probably don't care about, but I think this is another way in which we can see the problem of not having a true community council, because normally that's who would have undertaken this process. And you mentioned that returning it to GBOS is an option. You know, I think that moving to in a direction that guarantees openness and transparency is extraordinarily important, because right now I don't feel really great that the planning is going to feel like that this was a large inclusive community effort. I could be very wrong, but yeah, I just do not understand the nonprofit, but that's, you know, you can form one if you want. I just don't know what the implications are for this.
Holly, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like this committee has, you know, because this committee is the client, I feel like I've done a lot to make it open and inclusive. I don't think the process for the information that we're sharing has been exclusive. But that's about the process for sharing information. That's not about the organization of the committee, which is two different things. I feel like the participation in this project has been actually high compared to other processes I've experienced. So I don't know.
Kaylee, go ahead.
I guess that's what I was going to say, is that I feel like the participation is pretty high compared to other things that are going on in the community. So I don't know, you know, it seems like it's pretty inclusive to me, but perhaps I'm not involved in things that are going on by email. So if there are emails going back and forth between people from this committee and Holly, then I guess I don't know those. But other than that, I feel like it's pretty inclusive. This is a large group compared to other committees that I'm on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing you got to figure out. And that's like, I mean, somebody needs to manage me, right? And all of you at every meeting can't manage me. So like, and I think that's one of the things that needs to be figured out, really.
Are you getting a lot of emails from individuals in this group?
No, not a ton.
Okay.
I mean, it's up and down. But
fair.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know. Let's see. So and this is a professional opinion. This isn't how I feel. Well, I guess it is how I feel, but whatever. I'm tired. In my opinion, I don't believe that anybody has acted unethically as far as making decisions that are not inclusive. So, I mean, there is normal day-to-day that has to happen in writing. Like every single email that Shelley gets as a government employee isn't available to all of us all the time. There's just like this day-to-day that happens. And so I think we just have to find a balance that everybody trusts and feels good about for managing public funds and people's access to information. So I mean, and there's a balance. There's got to be a middle ground. And like my feeling is that so now this is more of a personal feeling, is that I think there could be a 501c3 that's created in a way that bylaws are written in a way to ensure public participation, but I think that could be strengthened by maybe strings on the public funds that say, you can't have these public funds unless you do these things, which would include open meetings and full inclusiveness. So I don't know. I'll stop talking now.
Mike, did you have anything else before it's 8 now, just after 8, we should probably start thinking about wrapping up, but we still have the.
We're not going to make any decisions on this. We weren't intending to. It's not.
new
So it's just a
business.
topic for next time. Yeah. I don't have anything
Okay.
more to add.
Cool. So think, we're gonna do some more thinking on this, try to figure out some more stuff, but for now, let's move on to our next item, our last item. Discuss return to regular in-person meetings, continuation of virtual meetings once emergency orders are lifted. I like virtual meetings.
Me
but
too.
Just like what Bob and the Bobian said, they were all having dinner while we were having meetings. I remember bringing my dinner to meetings and being rude, but I was so hungry. That's one of the best things about these virtual meetings. And people can be in other places than Girdwood to be able to keep participating. It just, I don't know, I feel like it's really increased our participation. But that's just my personal opinion as a person on this committee, not the vice chair making decisions by any means.
I like virtual meetings myself personally. I feel like I know that we've had more higher attendance in several of the different committees via virtual meetings. Now, maybe will change once people feel more free to be out, but at the same time, I still feel like we get more folks, and I don't know, I like it. That's my opinion.
I think we should try a little of both. Have one virtual, and then the next month have an actual meeting, and then you'll know within a meeting or two. If you start having twice as many people show up at the actual meetings, then you'll know that you're not really getting to the group as much as you think. So it would be interesting to see how many people would show up.
I hear that opinion, but I guess then I would feel forced to come to an in-person meeting in the community room when I don't know that I necessarily want to do that. And so if you were proposing a hybrid, I could see that.
And I think Margaret said that at least for the broader committees that she kind of oversees, they're not going to be able to have the capacity to do hybrids. So, and I don't know how we would necessarily be able to, though. We're good at brainstorming, so.
I mean, the general problem of a hybrid meeting is there's two classes. If the majority, well, not even the majority, but if the discussion in the room tends to exclude the people who are not in the room, and you end up with two levels of participation. Whereas when everyone is online, there's at least a parity. So I tend to agree it would either have to be only in person or only online. And I think there's certain tasks that are just really hard to do online. That we've often discussed the mapping task of just having a whiteboard or a large map on a desk that you can point at and move things around on. It's much more amenable to thinking about spatial issues. I think it's hard to get that in an online setting.
What's the timeline for this emergency order to be lifted? Like, what are we looking at for that? Does anyone know?
I don't know. I think the point here is at some point the community room will be available again. And at that point, we at least have the choice. We don't have the choice at the moment, but we will do at some point in the next couple of months, probably. So we should be prepared for that.
Anyone else? Joe?
Yeah, I was just going to say, based on everybody's different interaction styles, learning styles, you've got auditory versus visual, and I can only speak for myself. And I like in person, I like visual. I'm more effective that way versus sitting here trying to maintain focus on this while I have kids or I have other crap going on. So I apologize for my ineffectiveness, but I would lean towards in person.
All right. Really good discussion. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I did want to say just real quick, I do think that the virtual meetings are more inclusive and accessible. It's certainly not just for people with whatever kind of physical issues, but I know for me, it's been childcare issues in the past. It's not so much now, but being free of those has been marvelous in this last year.
All right, just in the sake of the fact that we're going over, and this is new business, so we're not trying to do anything with it. It's just putting it out there because we are gonna probably have to really make a decision at some point in the future. So unless there's any other, and feel free to go off mute or raise your hand. But I think we are wrapping it up. It looks like our next meeting is April 28th, and then May 26th. And before our next meeting, we're going to have some focus groups. Yes, Mike.
I'll just say, Holly, can you remind us the dates of the focus groups you suggested?
15th, 16th, 21st, and 22nd, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have them up anymore.
Wasn't it the 14th, 15th? It was Wednesday and Thursday.
Oh, so sorry.
I think 14th, 15th, 21st, and 22nd.
Hold on, I'm opening the document. Yeah, 14, 15, 21, and 22. And I would, go ahead.
Sorry, I said, do we need to specify times for those?
I was thinking 6 to 8 for both of them. I feel like you guys like that time frame. Does that work okay?
Good old dinner time.
And I'm guessing online.
It's great.
Yeah, I think we're going to be online.
All right. Well, yeah. I'll make popcorn, but it's just for me. No, I'm just joking. Okay. Any other discussion before we wrap up? And if not, let's have a motion to adjourn.
This is Kaylee. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Thanks, guys. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you guys so much. Really great meeting.